The resignation of Juliana Cherera as IEBC vice chairperson is a stark reminder of how managing elections in the country can abruptly end careers. Our very own William Moige signals out instances where commissioners were either hounded out of office or resigned due to the politicization of the electoral body that they served in.
The process that went into generation of Form 34C, which he used to declare results of the presidential election, was opaque. On Monday 5th, Juliana Cherera, in a letter to President William Ruto, resigned as the IEBC vice chairperson. Her resignation coming barely 2 days after IEBC Commissioner Justus Nyang'aya resigned from his position on Friday. The events come after 4 commissioners of the electoral body were suspended after being accused of attempting to subvert the will of the people in reference to the just concluded August 9 presidential elections. This is after President Ruto was declared the winner in the results announced by Wafula Chebukati after garnering 7.18 million votes, representing 50.49% of votes casted. The 2 others are Commissioners Irene Masit and Francis Wanderi. Azimio leader Raila Odinga will later petition the Supreme to overturn Ruto's win, but a 7-judge bench sitting at the Apex Court of Kenya on September 5th upheld the election of William Ruto as Kenya's 5th president. The development vindicating IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati. One of the main points the Raila Odinga team argued was if the breakaway of the 4 commissioners led by Chebukati's vice chair Juliana Cherera, splitting the commission into 2, affected the August polls and if the polls were fairly conducted.
Kila mtu anajua na Mungu anajua ya kwamba tulishinda uchaguzi. Tulishinda.
Ruto later appointed a 9-member tribunal to probe the suspended commissioners, chaired by Court of Appeal Judge Agre Muchelule. Other members of the team include Caroline Kamende, Matthew Njaramba, Colonel retired Said Hamis, Kibet Kirui Emmanuel, and Irene Tunta as joint secretaries. But this is not the first time an electoral body in the country is faced by a myriad of challenges in the aftermath of an election. This date backs to the late 90s since the reintroduction of multi-party politics in Kenya in the year 1991, with electoral bodies being confronted by allegations and accusations of making avoidable blunders despite efforts to streamline Kenya's electoral system. Though the 2002 election was hailed to be the most fair in Kenya's history, when a united opposition led by the late Mwai Kibaki, the following general election in 2007, in which Kibaki sought re-election, would be faced with a lot of issues.
I don't know if anything went wrong. I will say so. I do not know if anything went wrong. And that's what the law is there, that if something goes wrong, go to court.
In 2007, Kenya faced one of its darkest times after an election with the worst political instability experienced, when the country plunged into violence resulting from perception that the Electoral Commission of Kenya had rigged the elections in favor of Mwai Kibaki against Raila Odinga.
Hapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
The defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya's chairman Samuel Kivuitu did not foresee a situation where some of the commissioners will create a parallel chain of command and were dealing directly with returning officers behind his back.
One, here you are given the results in front of press. You know me, I didn't know which media was there. There's so many cameras, like I can see camera, the other camera, the other camera. Results are brought to you. What will you tell Kenyans the reasons for not announcing them and they are given to you? What will you say?
Kivuitu will later openly admit that he did not know who won between Kibaki and Odinga. In ECK, the returning officer did not have much powers and the chairman was the creator of primary documents. The ECK was later disbanded to create the Interim Independent Electoral Commission IEBC, and lawyer Isaac Hassan was appointed to head the electoral body. This was before the promulgation of the new constitution in August 2010, with a mission to institutionalize sustainable electoral process that will guarantee a free and fair election. The same team later graduated into the current IEBC after the promulgation of the 2010 constitution. In the IEBC under Mr. Hassan, the commissioners were involved in the day-to-day running of the electoral body and were involved in the procurement, Hassan adopted a hands-on approach to the extent that he was accused of usurping the duties of the Secretariat. Come the 2013 general election, the IEBC faced criticism when its technology failed, forcing the commission to revert to a manual system which Odinga, who unsuccessfully petitioned the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta, said was deliberately done to manipulate the election through ballot stuffing. Hassan and his 8 commissioners were subsequently hounded out of the office in October 2016, following months of street protest led by Odinga, leading to the establishment of a bipartisan joint parliamentary committee on election reforms led by James Orengo and Kiraito Murungi. The joint committee strengthened the use of electronic systems in results transmission. The new 7 commissioners led by Wafula Chebukati took office in January 2017, but the ground had since changed since the current commissioners have limited powers on the decision-making table. On October 18, 2017, Chebukati conceded that the IEBC commissioners are divided and are pursuing partisan political interest and that his suggestions are being shot down at the plenary. Chiloba complained that a section of commissioners are out to derail him in a manner that will compromise a credible repeat election on October 26. One of the commissioners, Dr. Rosalina Kombe, who resigned on October 17th, revealed that it had become increasingly difficult to continue attending plenary meetings where commissioners come ready to vote along partisan lines and not to discuss the merit of issues before them. Then Vice Chairperson Connie Nkatha and Commissioners Paul Kugat and Margaret Mwanchaya surprisingly resigned 6 months after the exit of Dr. Rosalina Kombe. Odinga withdrew from the race for a repeat poll on October 10th, citing the IEBC's refusal to effect changes ordered by the Supreme Court on September 1 and the decision by the ruling Jubilee Party to change the electoral laws midstream. In the run-up to the 2022 general elections, IEBC, through its chairperson Wafula Chebukati, announced some measures it was putting in place in a bid to deliver a free and fair election, among them banking on critical aspects such as voter registration, candidate nominations, regulations, staff recruitment, technology, and other materials. Hours before the announcement of the presidential results, a divided IEBC was exposed despite the electoral agency earlier dismissing claims that its members were not working as a team. IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati urged Kenyans not to pay attention to rumors of a division among stakeholders, and just like in the previous elections, a lot of politics and blame games will come to light afterwards.
In a young democracy, you find that there are institutions that will be very pivotal going forward. They need to be tested through all kind of stress. And I believe what IEBC has been going through is part of that. State building, which ultimately becomes now nation building.
This is a learning to future IEBC commissioners. They have to know that Kenyans, once they have been given mandate by the Kenyans to lead the independent elections commission, they must do the right thing.
The fate of the remaining 2 dissenting commissioners is unknown, as Chebukati and Commissioners Boya Molu and Abdi Gulie are set to retire come 2023. Moige William, TV 47.